Hey guys, in today's video I thought I would give you some advice and give you the basics on what to wear for your first obstacle course race. Now, before we get into things, what I wanted to do is go back a little bit to last week's video where I was talking about consistency. I believe I may have not clarified it quite to the extent I wanted to. Consistency is not just sticking to your routine. It is more about getting out there and getting it done. So if you're going to do your 3 to 4 days a week, that's what you need to do. So if you don't have enough time that day to get your full workout in, getting out and getting something done, no matter how little, is going to be beneficial. And that's what I really was trying to get through with that consistency. That's where you're going to make your steps, is constantly moving forward, not pausing and holding off because you don't have enough time to get the full workout in or the workout that you have scheduled for the day. If you can swap another workout in for that day, do it. You know, that's where you're going to get your gains. And you know, that's what I wanted to get through with last week's video on your consistency. All right, now let's go ahead and get into what to wear when you're just getting ready to run your first obstacle course race. Okay, so what to wear. Rule number one is don't wear cotton. Above all else, that's the quintessential rule right there for what not to wear for your obstacle course race, because you're going to be running through a lot of water, go over the obstacles, and cotton just is not going to work well for that. When cotton gets wet, it stretches out real good, and that's going to cause you to have troubles where it's just going to become ill-fitting. It's going to get in the way, and it can cause snags on walls and climbing under the barbed wire. Also, when it gets wet, it doesn't dry very fast, so you're going to end up running the entire race just drenched pretty much, and it gets real uncomfortable real fast. All right, so instead of cotton, what you should be looking at wearing is any kind of man-made fiber that wicks the moisture away from you or the water away from you. They'll dry out a lot faster, and they're generally, this is compression gear, and it fits a lot better, and that it keeps its shape. It will, like I say, dry out faster. And that way when you're climbing under the barbed wire, it's not going to snag easy because it's going to be form-fitting. So generally the recommendation is to wear compression gear, but if you're not wearing compression gear, wear some sort of man-made fiber that wicks moisture away from you, and absolutely, like I say, do not wear cotton. Now let's go on to our shoes. That'll be the next point to cover. Shoes, you can go two different ways. You can look at trying to purchase a specific OCR shoe or obstacle shoe, something with aggressive tread that drains water and will work well for this. But if you don't know if you're going to keep running these races, that may not be the best bet is to run out and buy an $80 or $100 or $150 pair of shoes. Instead, you can wear an old pair of shoes that may not be 100% advisable. If they're trail shoes, then they'll usually work well, and then at the end of the race you can usually give them to a charity who will clean them up and give them to, you know, people who need shoes. So that's of course a good way to give back and get rid of an old pair of shoes that you may not wear anymore, and that will give you an opportunity to decide whether or not you're going to keep running these races, and therefore should go and buy a brand new pair of shoes for obstacle racing specific. Okay, and then while we're talking about shoes, we also need to talk about socks. I covered it already, no cotton. People don't realize it a lot of times. I know I didn't the first time I ran my first race. I wore cotton socks, I wore cotton underwear. You know, it's just, it didn't turn out well. So with your socks, again, it's the compression fitting socks usually, and the two brands that I like are either Injinji, which are toe socks, and it takes a little while to get used to running in them. That's what I run in, and they work excellent for that. But Mud Gear makes socks that also work really well for those who don't want toe socks. Unfortunately, these are rather spendy pairs, I guess, depending on what you consider expensive, but when you're normally used to buying a 6-pack of socks for $10 or less, $8, buying a single pair of socks for $13 or $15 is rather expensive. So keep that in mind, but it is money well spent. Even if you're only going to be initially wearing them for the one race, they do generally tend to last a very long time. And of course you can wear them as your socks, later on if you choose to never run another race. Okay, and then one thing too that you need to consider when you're running with shoes, if you're going to purchase a new set of shoes, you may think about the types of laces that they have. A lot of the obstacle racing shoes are going toward the speed laces, which are just essentially you pull up on the laces to tighten them, and you pull down a little zip deal and it secures it into place. This is the shoes that I have. That's what they use. It works really well because they won't come untied. But I did notice that if you do have to take your shoe off in the middle of the race, that the mud will get caked in there, and that ratcheting mechanism that locks them into place has trouble releasing it. So there was that issue. Be warned of that. Otherwise, untying your shoes in the middle of a race after they get caked in mud is probably just as difficult. So it's, whatever your preferences are, but just something to keep in mind if you do look at purchasing new shoes that are going to be more specific for these runs, then that's something to look at. And lastly, we'll talk about the miscellaneous items that you might want to wear. I'm talking about camelbacks and anything else, hats. Depending upon your hydration needs and length of race, a camelback or hydration pack is always a good idea. Hats, if you want to keep the sun out of your eyes. Sunglasses, just be forewarned that these things, especially sunglasses, will get muddy if you try to. You can usually set them off to the side of the race or to the side of the course, but eventually they're just going to get muddy, so don't bring an expensive pair out there if you do. It is nice to keep the sun out of your eyes, but that's where usually a hat comes in. Sunglasses are pretty nice, but that's iffy for bringing those. There is a good chance you might lose them. So think about that. The hydration packs, again, if you need it, if your race is long, I like to wear it because I like to keep extra stuff in there along with just having the water with me. It allows me to pass up the water stops if I want to. And it, of course, helps you with improving your time. But I also like just having water with me whenever I want to take a sip. I constantly sip on it throughout the race, and it's very nice. But you may not need that or may not even want it. You do have to plan on wearing that during the race. Some of them can be uncomfortable, so you may want to practice ahead of time or train with it ahead of time. Take it for a run, especially on your long day. Make sure it is comfortable enough that it's not going to cause you problems and discomfort while you're running the race. Okay, and then also one thing I do like to put in my camelback are any kind of nutritional items. I prefer goo packs. These are energy gels, like carb gels. There are several different kinds of brands that you can have. It's good to test these things beforehand to make sure they don't cause you any discomfort, any stomach problems, things like that while you're running. And I've also noticed that a lot of people bring protein bars or similar items that are chewy. And I've noticed that when I'm in the middle of running the race, and a lot of people have done this, where even my goos go down thicker than normal. Maybe it's just you don't have enough saliva because you're a little more dehydrated because you're running, you got a dry mouth. But anybody I've seen with protein bars generally has trouble chewing them, so that may be something you want to think about, not having something that you have to chew or is normally chewy. Something like these goos or a gummy is also a good choice. So just to end here, give you a quick rundown on what I wear. Is you start with compression underwear with board shorts, or in my case I do compression tights, leggings over, and then the board shorts over those, and then a compression long sleeve shirt. I have my camelback, my Injinji socks, which like I say, toe socks. And then the Solomon shoes, the OCR shoes, they're not OCR specific, but they are very aggressively treaded and work really well for OCR runs. So that'll give you an idea of what I wear and what I recommend to be worn for the most comfort while you're running these races. Next week I will discuss how the time of the day that you choose to run will affect how your run is going to go. It won't be too big, but it'll give you a good idea. We'll catch you next time.